of our group, we request that all questions be put in the chat using that button at the bottom of your screen. So please don't unmute yourself and try to ask a question. The chat is the best way, and I will hand it off to Sarah Fletcher to introduce our speaker.
Hello, everybody. We are very fortunate to have our speaker today, Knox White, who is the mayor of Greenville. Let me tell you a little bit about his background. Knox is a native of Greenville. He went to Christ Church, Greenville High, Wake Forest, University of South Carolina Law School, and he is an immigration and customs lawyer now with the Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd law firm. He was on the city council, Greenville City Council, from 1983 to 93, and he has been our mayor ever since. His current term lasts till 2023. So he has been the longest serving mayor. And if you've been around Greenville, you can only imagine all of the changes that have happened since the time that he has been mayor. He and Marcia have 2 grown children, and they are basking in the joy of their first grandson, little George. So here is Knox. Oh, let me tell you first, Knox can only talk for about a half hour because he has been able to get a slot, perhaps, to have his first vaccination at Kmart today at 1:30. So at 1 o'clock, Knox is going to leave, and then we will have Lillian Brock Fleming talk to us for the last half hour. So here's Knox.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is one of these calls where I don't get to see the people on the line. Oh, that's the first time. I spoke to a couple of Rotary clubs, but they had all the members all outlined, so I could see who was following me closely and who was not, you know, like who was eating their lunch and that kind of thing. So you're all anonymous. I'll see how that works out. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I do have my vaccination appointment. It turned out to be at what did I say, about 1:30, and so as much as I love you, I'm gonna have to grab that while I can. I just found out though that the morning appointments were all canceled because the doses did not arrive, and several hundred people were told that their appointments were no good, and they had to leave this morning. And now I'm told that those morning people have showed up during the afternoon time. So I'm probably wishful thinking to think I'm gonna get it today. Otherwise, there's something like 1,000 people at Kmart. So I'll see what happens. So this will be the highlight of my day, is what I'm trying to say. It will not be later on. I'm going to try to keep my remarks a little more concise than I usually do, so you can have a chance to ask questions, because I'm only here from 12:30 to 1 o'clock-ish or so, and give you a chance to ask questions, which I think will always be better. But up front, I just want to say there was an article just yesterday from a real estate survey group, a very, very respected one, in fact. And headline was top cities in America for, what was the word they used? Inflow. That's top cities for people moving into those cities. And the #1 city in America in terms of people moving in is Phoenix, Arizona. #1 was Phoenix. #2 was Dallas. No surprise with those two, Phoenix and Dallas. Orlando, Tampa, Austin, Texas.
Just hold on, he'll get back.
What's that?
Yeah.
Austin, Texas, Las Vegas, Atlanta, and #8 on the national list, Greenville, South Carolina. Not Charlotte, not Raleigh, Greenville. In fact, Charlotte is after Greenville. How about that? I suspect many of you are part of that inflow, but it's all a bit scary for all of us here, and how we deal with the growth. That's always been our focus here at City Hall for the last 20 years. It's about growth management and planning. We've always been good about planning, and I hope it shows in the city. We don't get everything right, but we do certainly anticipate as much as we can, and we try to be proactive and good about planning and good about urban design and all those things you enjoy about the downtown, really throughout the whole city. But there it is. We've been on these kind of lists for a long time, but this one is worth a second look to see why people are coming here and what area of Greenville they're moving to. They're definitely moving into Greenville County. You know, the county has been growing at a fast pace for some time, and Greenville County is today the largest county in South Carolina, bigger than Charleston County, bigger than Columbia, Richland County. Been true for some time. What's new and different for those of us who've been here a long time is that for the first time in 40 years, the city of Greenville has also been growing. The city population began to decline in 1960 with every census after that until the last one. And that's something I'm actually very proud of, because for a long time, the county was growing like crazy with very little oversight, very little planning, if you will. The city's been more careful about how we grow, but we had a hard time for a long time attracting people to actually live in the city of Greenville, as opposed to living in the east side or living in, down Woodruff Road or something like that. And it's a good thing for Greenville County to have more of this balance. And it's a good thing for Greenville, I believe, to have a good, strong urban core in the middle of the growth and not have something that's broken and blighted, which is where we were not too many decades ago. But now the county is growing, again, I would say without enough oversight in terms of planning decisions, but it certainly is growing. The city is growing as well for the first time in 40 years at a pretty good rate. I think it's enough for us to absorb. But the good news is everything we do has been focused on how we manage the growth in the city, not the county, the city, which is just the geographic center of the county. So what are we doing? You may be reading a lot about our comprehensive plan, which is comprehensive plans actually are a state mandated 10-year plan for counties and cities. And I'd like to say that we take the state mandate and we do much more with it. We use it as a chance every so often to bring in good consultants to really look at our demographics, numbers like I just talked about, and to ask hard questions about how are we handling the growth that we're experiencing and what are our priorities. And the comp plan that we just adopted, first reading last night, sets out some goals. There's nothing new about these goals in the sense that they do reflect city priorities for the past many years, but it's good to have a document that affirms that, reaffirms it, and kind of solidifies the direction we're going in. The comprehensive plan was a product of a very large citizen committee. We opened it up to residents to participate. I forgot how many people we had on it, but we had a lot of people, and they worked with some consultants for a year, put together the comprehensive plan. I say all this because it does help us stay focused on what we've been about for some time already, but stay focused for the future. And so what are the things we're going to focus on? It's all about managing growth. So what are we going to do? Well, what we're saying is we're going to focus on things like green space and parks. In the middle of growth in an area, wherever it is in the country, one of the best things you can do is grab the opportunity when you can to focus on building up your green space in your park system. And we're doing that. Unity Park, that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, is a big example of that, because that's 60 acres of new green space, new parkland in the heart of our community. Another goal that we have and have had for some time is to be mindful of the need for affordable housing, or what I really like to say is just housing for all different income levels, that we are looking at what the direction we're going in. Obviously, when you're in a successful community, land values go up, things become more expensive, and the city is more expensive than much of the county because of our success. And by the way, I do want to point out quickly, just 20 years ago, you could have bought a condo on Main Street for, you'd go crazy if you heard how much, I don't know, maybe $250,000. Those same condos are close to $800,000 and $1 million today, but that's how fast things change. So recognizing that, we've been all about affordable housing strategies for the past several years, and we've had some great success recently, which I'll tell you about, and we're still looking for the future. So green space is an important focus. Workforce and affordable housing in the city, finding opportunities where they lie to create that is another priority in the city under this plan. The plan also addresses public transportation issues, which is a joint county and city matter, and a number of other things. But you get the gist of what we're talking about. It's all about managing growth and trying to make Greenville kind of a supreme example, if you will, of how to live with growth and how to experience it in the right way. And that's what we're all about. And yes, we do talk about traffic management and such as that. So let me back up a minute and tell you about Unity Park, because that figures into all of this. Unity Park encompasses two issues: green space and parks and affordable housing. So two things going on in Unity Park that you should know. Number one, we are, as we sit here right now, we are bulldozing the Reedy River. Massive construction site starting in the river in this area. This is near the Wittenberg School and the Kroc Center in that vicinity. Swamp River Trail runs through it. If you go down there right now, you'll see a big part of the park program, which is a reconstituting of the river. The Reedy River, as it exists today, was a WPA project in the 1930s. It's a ditch, just a big ditch. Doesn't handle the water very well in terms of flooding. It also doesn't handle it well in terms of quality of the water. That's all going to change, and it's going to change radically. We're taking the banks of the river and spreading them out, and it'll be a more beautiful, more approachable river. It also will manage its water flow much more efficiently. So that's underway right now. It's quite an interesting thing to see. I've never seen a river bulldoze before, so I enjoyed it when I go down there. The second thing we're doing down at Unity Park right now is that we're in the middle of all the key decisions in a row to fulfill our commitment to affordable housing. So a couple of years ago, the City Council voted to donate 8 different parcels of property that sit on the edge of this beautiful new park that's under construction. These are properties that already had high land value because of their proximity to the park, and you can imagine where those land values were going in the future, up, and up, because they're on the edge of the park, guaranteed to be what some people call beachfront property. Well, we took these properties, these key properties that we just happen to have owned for many decades, and we've donated those properties to the Housing Trust Fund, which is our vehicle for affordable housing throughout the city. We have some very smart people on there. We know how to leverage money, but they're able to take these properties and put affordable housing on it. So just last night, the City Council formally voted to donate all the properties to the Housing Trust Fund, providing that important technicality, if you will, to make that land transfer. And the Housing Trust Fund is in the thick of working with developers on those sites. We have 2 that are kind of front of the line. We're going to build a senior housing project on the edge of the park, and that's important because that speaks to the people who live in the neighborhood, who've lived there for generations. This gives an opportunity for seniors who live in that neighborhood, again, for, in many cases, many decades, a chance to stay in the neighborhood, which has been one of the big concerns. In addition, there's going to be other levels of affordable housing. There'll be market rate housing as well, but always with a set aside for workforce and the like. But the City Council is kind of we choose to kind of step aside. We've set the policy. We're letting the Housing Trust Fund, which is a very able organization, work with developers and come out with some good products. At the end of the day, surrounding Unity Park will be the largest footprint of affordable housing in the entire city of Greenville. We expect to have some 400 units, and my prediction will be more than that actually, surrounding the park, senior housing of all types and kinds. And I think it's gonna be a real model on the edge of the park. So we're already getting a lot of interest, by the way, from around the country with people show up to sort of see how we're doing this, because a lot of cities are building parks and green space, and they're finding the same issue, which is what do you do about the appreciation of value around a new park, and how do you deal with that issue? And I think we're doing it the right way. So that's underway, and the council voted last night. That's about, I said 8 parcels were donated. It comes to about 9.5 acres of land. 9.5 acres of land around the park. The park, by the way, also has market rate housing around it as well. People got ahead of us, if you will, bought property and built condominiums. And we have we have 3 large projects on the edge of the park that are privately built. So at the end of the day, you'll have housing for people in the with the values of $800,000 to $900,000 condos. In the same neighborhood, you'll have people in workforce and affordable senior housing. So it'll be a very mixed income neighborhood, if you will. So that's Unity Park, and how it ties into the comp plan, which I think is very important. That's underway. Let me check on my time here, 12:45. Okay, I want to give you plenty of time to ask questions. Touch on COVID real quick. Last night, the city of Greenville renewed its mask ordinance. We have honestly what I consider to be a very an effective but modest mask ordinance, because it basically just says that when you're inside a retail establishment, I mean, the state of South Carolina requires you to wear a mask in a restaurant. That's the state. And we can't even talk about the state, about the restaurants, because that's preempted by the state. But all other businesses and shops and stores, grocery stores, pharmacies, we have required mask wearing since I think it was in June. We were the first city in South Carolina. People ask about the enforcement of that, and I'm going to tell you, having been pretty close to the police department and the fire department the last several months, we make a lot of visits. We do take tips when there's non-compliance. We do have a lot of conversations with people, but we're not trying to be out there. In fact, it's impossible to be out there enforcing things all the time if people won't wear them. Good news is, as we talk to businesses, when we get a tip for somebody saying they're not wearing the mask at a certain store, in 99% of the cases, we have compliance from the owners once we make a visit. So I just want to say we have a lot of eyes and ears out there in the community keeping an eye on things. And when you see things, do report it. But that's just the city of Greenville. The county of Greenville, which is of course much, much bigger than the city of Greenville, has no requirements other than what the state order, the governor's order imposes. So that's been frustrating to us. Last night, we heard from Dr. Marcus Blackstone of Secours St. Francis. He spoke just to tie together the vaccination programs and why it's important to continue wearing a mask protocol, especially at this time as we have the rollout of the vaccination. And we think it's still extremely important. And he affirmed that. And sometimes people say, well, when is the city no longer going to have a mask ordinance? And I would answer, I think I can say this on behalf of City Council, that we'll take our cues as we always have from Bon Secours St. Francis and from Prisma Health. We have a great relationship with those folks, and when they say it's time, then it's time, and not before. And finally, we can talk a little bit about the budget impact of COVID, but overall, considering everything, it's pretty good. We've built into our budget expectation of lower revenues because of, say, business licenses having declined. Most of our projections were overly dire. We've actually done a little better, so we'll take that. Hospitality taxes are up. They're not what they were 2 years ago, but they're up. That's what people pay for food and beverage, so that gives you an indication in terms of restaurants and people eating out. And I guess people are doing a lot of takeout because our projections are better than we expected. Not great, but than 2 years ago, but still better than we expected. Lots going on though. Development didn't stop during COVID at all, and we continue to get a lot of interest in businesses moving here and people moving here, obviously. We actually had two, I'll end on this. We had, before COVID, we had 2 new hotels that had been announced in downtown Greenville. Yeah, I know, how many more hotels can we take? But they have confidence in the future. We had 2. And I'm not talking about the Bohemian that's already under construction. I mean, 2 that were in the pipeline. They were announced in the West End. And that was before COVID. And I really expected that both those projects in the West End near the baseball stadium, I expected both of them to disappear. They did not. In December and in January, the developers and owners of those projects were in touch with us, both independently and both saying to us independently that we do intend to proceed with our plans for the hotels in West End Greenville in 2021. And they've been back, and I guess we're going to continue to see that. So they have a lot of confidence that this will continue to be a very desirable place, not just to live, but also to visit or do business. And hence the hotels are still coming. All righty, Sarah, I'll take some questions.
Okay.
Keep an eye on the clock
Yes.
so I can join the 1,000 people down at Kmart for the blue light special.
Part of us probably is comforted by the fact that even the mayor is concerned about how to get a vaccine. Please, everyone, keep your mute on. If you have a question, go to the chat and put it in. Let me tell you some of the first questions that have come up so far.
Okay.
Well, hold on a minute here. I just had it. Okay, is the trolley in and around downtown closed to the public for now? I saw a trolley with the sign "Essential Riders Only" just this week?
Huh. As far as I know, it's open with limitations on the number of people, and certainly the GTA is. So I'll have to check into that. I've seen the trolleys myself, and I had no reason not to think they weren't operating as usual. But I'll check on that.
Bob Stein asks, what is the status of the proposed/deferred reconstruction of the Church Street Bridge?
That's somebody who really keeps up with the media. That's good. Yeah, couple years ago, South Carolina Department of Transportation announced, to our surprise, we didn't have any heads up on this, that the Church Street Bridge, built in 1960 or so, needed to be renovated, and it still does. They're still in touch with us. They still intend to do some renovation. I think what they found out was the bridge was actually in worse shape than they thought, and it's going to cost more. So they're trying to work their numbers. So at some point it's going to be a renovation, and at some point it's going to be one big headache because they're going to have to close lanes or do something like that. They're not going to tear it down, but they're going to do some pretty serious renovation. Now, from the city standpoint, the reason we keep an eye on it, and why I keep an eye on it too, is that we're working with them to create a bike and walking trail on the Church Street Bridge. And there is a way to do it. There currently are sidewalks on that bridge, though nobody hardly ever walks on it. And I would not advise you to do so. It was built in 1960, and believe it or not, the sidewalks, if you're walking on the sidewalks, the railing is really below your waist. It's not safe at all. So all that'll be changed, and we're keeping on because we want to see a really good bike and walking connection on that bridge. And then we can do that without the same number of lanes. What they're going to do is take out the existing sidewalks and have just a sidewalk on one side that would be wider. And we need a good barrier. And I think some of the issues with them right now is the weight of the barrier and what it means in terms of expense of the project. And that kind of.
Marge Sheska asks, lots of apartments in the West End new apartment complex are being pushed with over 200+ units on 4+ acres surrounded by single-family homes. Part of the push is 25% of the apartments low income at $1,300 for a 1-bedroom. Are we crowding too much into a hot area?
Well, definitely West Greenville around the baseball stadium is a pretty hot area right now. We've heard the concerns about that, and we're always focused on how we protect our existing neighborhoods, and we're going to continue to do that. I would just remind people that just because somebody proposes something doesn't mean that it's going to be approved. And people sometimes don't. If you haven't been through the process with the city, you wouldn't know. We keep a close eye on these things, and we certainly are encouraging affordable housing. We certainly are along Academy Street would encourage what's there now along Academy, which is multifamily. We've had a multifamily along that strip for decades. What we would not encourage is any intrusion into the neighborhood that would be, truly out of character. And there's the rub. But the fact that people propose things, it happens all the time. We're keeping good eye on it. Councilman Fleming is on the line, and she can affirm that as well. But hey, the great thing when I hear all this is the neighborhoods around the baseball stadium, single family neighborhoods, have really come alive with people buying houses and fixing them up and new construction, and that's a good thing. And the reason for that is the baseball stadium and all the work been done in West End. So we all have to kind of work to get along together and make it all blend together well. But I think at the end of the day, it will. It's a healthy thing having people living there and wanting to live there.
Paul says, I learned to play pickleball in one of my first classes when I joined Ollie 3 years ago. Since then, I've become immersed in the Greenville pickleball community. As you may know, the demand for courts far exceeds the availability, and the demand will only grow. Mm-hmm. Can you speak to any plans Greenville has to provide quality courts?
Yeah, we actually talked about that at last night's city council meeting. And this, again, is a changing dynamic. We implemented some pickleball courts several years ago, in fact, in Timmons Park, and they quickly became popular, and we noted that. I think we're obviously a little bit behind the curve here in popularity, but we are going to be looking at all of our tennis courts and seeing where they can be restriped for double duty, if you will, as well as other pickleball courts elsewhere in the city. But the answer is yes. We've heard that loud and clear, and we're working to meet that demand.
Margaret Allen says, are people being displaced in the Unity Park area?
No. Unity Park is a area that was historically warehouses and empty land. And then many decades ago, there was a proposed road project through there, and houses that were in that vicinity were taken out at that time. This is like 30, 40 years ago. So it's always been a sort of deserted area. And so putting it back in with green space, I think is a good thing. And in addition to what we're doing, again, we're going to end up with about 400 affordable housing units in that area, far and away more than ever were there. So we're going to be very attentive to that.
Great. Susan says, thank you for your time today and your leadership. Is there a restriction on how tall buildings in downtown can be built?
Not in downtown proper. That's sort of the definition of a downtown. The market forces control that. It's actually hard to have a very high building these days because people have a different attitude about square footage on a floor. They don't like, you have to have a large square footage floor. Therefore, buildings tend to be actually a little bit lower. Same issue in most cities. But no, there's no height limit in the downtown core. You get outside of downtown, yes, there are height limits.
Donna Reese says, what are plans for helping to house the homeless?
We're fortunate in Greenville to have a Homeless Alliance and formally and informally groups that work together very well and have for decades. And I think do a just superior job of providing services. And the big breakout news, several years ago, we built Reedy Place, which is a homeless housing facility, very successful along Academy Street. In one sense, if you don't know about Reedy Place, that's a good thing because I mean, there've really been no issues. It's worked very well for when you have good casework, which is what we try to focus on, good casework, one-on-one with people. It's hard work, but it gets the job done. And some people can be rewarded with a place at Reedy Place. But the good news is a new facility closer to Furman, actually, is now funded and will be under construction shortly, which will actually have more rooms than Reedy Place. And that's the best thing I think this community could be doing is good social casework, number one. And number two, having some housing of last resort that's proven popular. Again, managed not by the city or the county, but managed by the people who know this issue better than anyone. That's the people on the street as the caseworkers.
Okay, Bob's asking another question, but I already asked one of his. So Dungy asks, are there other green spaces being developed?
Yes, actually, a couple of years ago, we bought additional space along the Reedy River, green space near downtown that previously was owned by private parties. And they were planning to build a building on that site. And we jumped in there and bought it. So we've added green space there. And Unity Park, again, is 60 acres that's going to be green and tree, lots, like I forgot how many trees, a startling number of new trees being planted in Unity Park. And also we have Hollingsworth Park, of course. And so we've been about it for some time. I think we're just going to continue with our ordinances we have a new tree ordinance, by the way. A new tree ordinance was passed by City Council after a year's worth of work on that too. That was passed 2 weeks ago by City Council. So, I say parks and green space, but it's also about how you manage your developments that you do have, that you require more trees and more careful attention to that than we did in the past.
Knox, it's 1 o'clock, and we thank you for your time.
I'll do one more. I'll do one more.
Okay, one more. Bob
my clock says 12:59, Sarah.
All right. Bob says, what are the plans for development of the former downtown area across the street from Bon Secours?
The old auditorium site. Yeah, the old auditorium site across from, are you talking about the arena? Bon Secours Arena? Must be. We call that the Gateway Project. That site is not owned by the city. It's owned by two different private developers, two different private owners, I should say. And it's had proposal after proposal. Either the two couldn't agree to work together or they went different directions and the things didn't happen. I would just say right now it's owned by two different owners. Each has their own plans for it. We have always encouraged that those two owners should get together to develop it the right way. I think the site needs to be one unitary site. You may notice just up the street from that is the new, I would use the word majestic federal building, U.S. federal building is almost complete. That building was originally intended to be on the site that you're speaking of, the auditorium site. And it was the federal government that changed its mind and pulled the project over to the other block, which is fine, but it sort of disrupted the natural marketplace, if you will. We would have had that site developed long ago if the feds had not changed its mind. So, but we do have a new federal building, by the way. It looks really good. I'm going on a little tour next, well, actually Thursday. I'm going Thursday to take a look at it.
Now it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock now, according to mine. Yeah.
We thank you
All
very
right.
much. We hope you're able to get your shot today.
Yeah, wish me luck and thank you very much. Hope everybody else is getting their vaccinations and we can do this again next year in person, please.
Great.
Yeah,
We look
thank you.
forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Knox.
All right, bye.
Now we'll look for Lillian Rock Fleming. Where's Lillian? Lillian, you'll have to turn off. There you are. Okay. Can you see us, Lillian?
Yes,
Can you hear us?
yes,
Okay.
yes, I can.
I will give a very brief introduction and we'll ask Lillian to talk and answer questions for our last half hour or
Okay,
45 minutes.
Okay.
Lillian is a native of Greenville. She has been on city council since 1981. That's 2 years before Knox was on city council. Lillian has her bachelor's degree and master's in mathematics education from Furman University. And in 2014, she got an honorary doctorate from Furman of Humanities. She worked for the school district as a math teacher and then as a recruiter for teachers. She has a long history of community service, as you can imagine. She's been the past president of the Municipal Associations of South Carolina. She's been active at Southern Side, Brockwood Senior Housing, which is named for her mother, well-known Lila Mae Brock. She's been active with the Boy Scouts, with the Girl Scouts, with Upstate Warrior Solution, with the Greenville branch of NAACP, and many others. Believe it or not, she and her husband, get this, have 7 sons and 3 daughters. So here's Lillian.
all right. Hi, how is everybody? I'm just here to answer questions and excited to be here. I've been here once before to talk about Unity Park. So I'm here to talk about whatever and questions, answer questions to see how everybody is doing. Because oftentimes as a former teacher, you do better when people hear what they want to talk about. So if you tell me what kind of things you talk about, and I may not know the answer, but trust me, I'll know who has it and we'll find it. So we're glad to see everybody today.
I'll look at the questions that are into the chat line. Right now, we have a question from Dan Sheska, and he says, what is the status of the proposed conference center?
Okay, with the proposed conference center that's supposed to be, that the city is supposed to be participating in, we have agreed to continue the process of paying that. And I think our portion was to bond $25 million. And so that's the status of it right now. But then we only do our portion. So I can't tell you the whole status, but we can, I'm sure that information will come out because then the county has to do theirs and the other entities. And so.
I think I read that the state has agreed to put in 19 million.
19 million, yes.
And tell them about the 2 museums that are proposed to be there.
They're supposed to have, one is the Bob Jones Museum is supposed to be one of them, and the other is supposed to be very similar to the Upstate History Museum, but it's supposed to give the but it's not the Upstate History Museum, of course, but it's supposed to give an opportunity for more people who travel through the community. I'm a little bit concerned about the museums, but as always, it was so difficult for them to even get the funding. So I know there'll be more discussion and information. And if you have suggestions and if you have interest in either of those, you need to say something. because oftentimes people who are directing things are not elected officials. And so since they're not elected officials, then they don't hear or see or do what we hear as elected officials. But I have some of my constituents are quite concerned that the museums would be in one direction rather than be more inclusive. And of course, with the city being a part of it, that will not be something that we can take a part of.
I think it is the art museum, not the Upstate History Museums. The art museum is the other museum that was proposed for that center.
The art museum, you know, yes, right.
Here's another question from Susan. She says, in addition to Unity Park and affordable housing, what other priorities is City Council working on?
Well, we're working on sustainability for climate and environment. We're working on transportation. We're also working on having inclusionary decisions about not only our staff, but about the city as a whole, trying to make sure that we're a neighborhood, that we have not lost sight of the neighborhoods that we're supposed to serve. And so that's one of the things, because zoning will be a major portion of it, because we have been reviewing areas and wondering why we're having a difficult time in some areas. And we've learned that sometimes we've rezoned the area improperly to remain a safe place for neighborhoods. So we're going to begin a process, and when we're working on it right now, particularly in the West End, we're doing a West End master plan. So that's one of the things that we're concerned about. I've been concerned about gentrification, so we're trying to make sure that our planning and our zoning and our developments make sure that they are not all distance from the people who are in the greatest need. We are also part of the Homeless Alliance and have been, as well as Mental Health Alliance. We've been working on all of those areas in order to make sure. So our 10 areas and goals that are set there and missions that are on our Greenville 2040 are more people friendly. We're trying to be more concerned about the people who pay the taxes than just trying to worry about always people. Some people say, well, we need to focus on economic development. Well, we need to focus on people development, because without people, you have no economic development. And we found out once before, we had all of these great businesses downtown, and we didn't do anything for our people, and the businesses left. So we will not do that again.
George Bynum says, is the large parking structure next to Greenville High School part of the future conference center or something else?
That is something else. That's an apartment complex that is privately owned. It is not something that the city is building, but of course we had to be sure that the spaces that are near the baseball stadium, which is our property, we have to make sure that those public spaces do not go away. But that is a private development. It will be apartments, I think, and condominiums.
Okay, I don't see any other questions from other people. Can you tell us more details about future transportation plans for the city? How is that going to change? What are we looking for?
Now, in terms of future transportation, we have to be inclusive of the county, because our transit authority is both city and county funded. So we have to work with the county as well. We really would like a world-class transportation system that has great mobility. We're talking about buses. We're talking about small vans that's needed. We are talking about our beautiful electric buses that are anti-diesel. We are talking about all areas of transportation, even our bike paths, our walking paths. We're looking at all of those facets, because you cannot be a world-class city and not think about all processes that people use in order to get from point X to point Y. So we would hope, I wish we had the money to buy more electric buses, but we do what we can. We find grants as often as we can and try to change those. When I went to college, I went on the bus because it was easier, because buses ran every 15 minutes. You get somewhere, and you were job. You could go to school. You could.
I think you're frozen for us, Lillian. Jessica, is anything we can do about that? Heidi, Nancy?
I was giving her a minute to see if maybe she was going to unfreeze, but it looks like she's having some technical difficulties. So I guess we just probably kind of need to wrap up and maybe let us know what's happening next week and make a few announcements in hopes that maybe she will pop back in.
Right now, I don't remember the name of the speaker next week.
Oh, well, let me look it up. Let's see.
The speaker next week is Frank Holloman. And he's going to be speaking on the water issues affecting the lakes, rivers, and streams in the Greenville and area and the Upper Piedmont. And that he will be speaking to us next week.
Super.
Great.
Okay. My system froze up. I don't know what happened, but it is what it is. So.
Oh, we got you back. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody was just frozen. I was like, okay, what happened?
Okay, let me read you the next question.
Sure.
Are there any plans to upgrade through the development the area along Wade Hampton from Bob Jones to Harris Teeter?
Yes, there are some plans. They're not firm, but there are some plans. In fact, every segment of the city part, from the county part to the part, there's something that's planning. Some things we work with the state in trying to work on the roadway, because to me, it doesn't make sense to build something beautiful, then they come along and tear it up. So you have to coordinate with the state, but there are some plans to try to beautify. We're looking at, like I said, we just passed the ordinance on the tree canopy. So we're going to be looking at all of our major thoroughfares all the way up that road to be sure that we have adequate tree canopy in order to cover the whole area.
Susan asks, in regard to gentrification, has there been any consideration of freezing property taxes for current homeowners and only raising the taxes when the home is sold?
That's a state issue. We can't do that. That's a state issue. Yeah, that etc. We really would want to be able to do inclusionary zoning. Our state refuses to accept it, but inclusionary zoning would allow cities and counties to do just that. We could say, you can't put before to here unless you give us 10 houses that are affordable. And that type of zoning they would allow us to do that. But without the state laws, we cannot do that. We have to just pray, basically, because there are some developers that will work with you. And they may give us 2 apartments, 2 complexes, but that's 2 we didn't have, and so we'll take them.
Mark Lieberman asks, with all of the hospitality businesses coming into Greenville, what is being done to help people get from their home into town? Obviously, these low-paying jobs, many of these people can't afford parking or automobiles.
Right, exactly right. And we have a team of restaurateurs that have been working with the city to try to get an answer for that. We've got some parking rides in some places. We've worked with them to get discounts on tickets for people to ride the buses We reevaluated our bus routes to be sure that they were going near and where the people needed them to go. So it's been an ongoing discussion for the last couple of years, because oftentimes if they make $10 an hour, you know, parking is $10 an hour. I'm just saying, so, you know, they haven't even worked to do that. So we have to work on some things like that. And you can't just expect people to get a car, because a car has the insurance and all the other things. It's very expensive. So we've been looking at it. Our problem is our transportation system is nothing like it was when I was a little kid. You know, like I said, the buses came every 15 minutes. They were done. So we've got to build a much better infrastructure for buses. We've also been looking at housing that's closer in, which is the reason that for Unity Park, we're looking at workforce housing. It's closer to downtown, so people wouldn't have to, if they wanted to, they could walk or catch a ride or catch one bus and not have to ride 3 or 4 buses in order to get there. And so we will, some of the land that we will donate to the community will be for senior housing. Some of it will be for workforce housing. It will not be for high end, and that end to help some of the people who make the $10 an hour to be able to afford a place to live closer in where they can actually work. So we figure that we got to work on all facets, not just the bus transportation, but you have to work also on the on where they live, so their mobility is even better. We've even looked at investing in taxi, Ubers, and all of those other transportation systems as well.
Dan asked a very similar question. I think you answered it. George asks, what is the status of moving the Civil War statue off of Main Street to the Springwood Cemetery?
Okay, it's in the process. We're working on, well, COVID kind of slowed us down a little bit more, you know, people being sick and you can't get things approved. But that is something that we're working on to move it out of the way. Right now, we know the state doesn't allow, you know, they even passed a bill saying that localities cannot move Confederate statues to do that. I mean, they even passed a bill so we wouldn't. I said, oh my God. However, if you read it, if you've read the monument that's up there, you definitely would want it to be moved. It's very hurtful when you're a person who looks like me. And anyway, the monument itself needs to be moved, but we're working on it and we're getting to that particular point.
Knox mentioned a study about the inflow population that Greenville was number 8. You may not know this, but Mary asks, what is the name of that study that showed that Greenville is number 8 in inflow population in the United States? Would you know the name of that study?
I'm not really sure. It could be something that was produced by the National League of Cities, which we're a member of, or the other, there's a land management group that we're very much a part of, but I'm not really sure, but we can find out and I can have them send that back.
Thank you.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
That's quite interesting.
Once again, Greenville's on many good lists.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
One more question. What is being built at the, I guess it means intersection of Academy and Washington?
Academy and Washington. Oh, that particular, it's supposed to be a private development of apartments, not condominiums, not townhouses, but it's supposed to be workforce housing, which is what there's supposed to be an agreement. However, until that agreement is signed and until everything is in place, because people could, like Knox said, people will come to you with an idea, but if their money is funny, then we don't sign agreements because we don't want something started, dug up, promised, and then it doesn't happen. So we have to look at how they're funded, who's going to fund them, and is it going to be actually built? or is it just going to take up some space? So it's supposed to be, if it is constructed, it is supposed to be nice workforce housing for people and going away from the high end. And I think they're supposed to be, the drawings are very beautiful. And they have a nice parking structure, but it's supposed to be basically for people who are kind of, it's not low income, but it's more medium. I think up into $60,000 or $70,000 salaries. So there's more the workforce area than anything else. Because if everybody's building high end and low end, then the people in the middle are being shortchanged, and they know that. And so they're trying to bridge that gap.
And lastly, Lillian, do you have some particular concerns or areas, projects you are involved with that haven't been mentioned so far that you'd like to tell us?
Well, nothing major. I've just been kind of keep my eye on the West End because everybody in the world is, I mean, I get tons of phone calls of people calling, wanting to build things in the West End that don't necessarily fit the West End and the neighbors, and I encourage them to have a conversation with the people as well. Same thing is happening with the thing that's happening at the baseball stadium for Field Street, which is on the other side of the development. The problem that I had, my neighborhood had, is they hadn't had any conversation with them. You just don't put something that's going to be make changes to streets, traffic flow, and everything else, and the beautification in the area, and you don't talk to the people who live around it. And so, so that's one of the things I've been doing, is just looking at it. And the other big project that I'm working on, it's not even one thing, but the West End is void of parking spaces, and so we're having to look at vacant land, and we just got a great report yesterday that we found a spot to put 50 more parking spaces, etc. Because oftentimes some of the people who have invested their money into their houses, and then they don't even have a parking space in front of their house. They can't have anything there because everybody's parked in front of your house, and that's not a good thing. So we're trying to look at that. That's one of my major concerns is the parking in for the West End Neighborhood Association is a real big one, and we don't have as much of a problem with that for the Greater Sullivan community, but we have a problem with construction. Construction in that there's a lot of 2- and 3-story houses being built in the neighborhood, and it causes all of the 1-story homes to lose their view. You know, people don't really think about that. You put this 3-story mantra beside somebody else that's 1-story, and it creates a problem for them having the ability just to even look out their window. And so that's the problem. And so I'm just the project monitor. I have to monitor that's going in, and we have some great development and projects that are actually going to be gorgeous and look good for the community. So it's just a matter of looking at them and just talking to people and making sure that we have what we have. Gentrification started a long time ago. A lot of people are concerned about it now, but the gentrification happened when I first got on council 40 years ago. It started then because the highway came through and just wiped out. They had a plan to build a major highway, and it would have torn down 1,100 houses in my neighborhood, which is the reason that I got on council, because that was not going to happen. As long as somebody was living, that was not happening. So we got it down to maybe 200 or 300, but not 1,100. And so the city now, all of the growth and development and people talking about gentrification, well, there's nothing there in some spots. So people are building houses on them. So they didn't move anybody. Those people moved years ago. So we got a lot of vacant land that is being infilled. And the difference is oftentimes it's being infield with people who are of other cultures and other races than the people who are in that community. So the communities are changing. So that in itself changes them back to gentrification of the community, et cetera. So.
Thank you, Lillian. We want to be mindful of everyone's time and thank you very much for coming at the last moment.
Oh, no problem.
We appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who came today. And we hope you'll come and listen to Frank Holloman next week for Lunch and Learn.
That should be good. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.